of the very first growers that joined the co-op that has grown and makes SweetTango apples available for us all. Welcome to the Produce Moms. This is the podcast where I talk to various people who've made an impact on the fruit and vegetable community. There are so many stories to share that will change the way you look at fresh produce. John, we are so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back. It's great to talk to you again.
Let's talk a little bit more right now about your history in family farming.
Well, Pine Tree Apple Orchards has been around since 1904. So it's located on the northeast side of the Twin City areas in Minneapolis, St. Paul, in Minnesota. So my father actually started working for Pine Tree in 1950, purchased it in 1958. And since that time, I have a brother and 4 sisters that operate the orchard. It's grown in size from 25 acres in 1958 to over 150 acres now, located in 2 different locations across the state of Minnesota, one in the St. Paul, Minneapolis area, and one in southern Minnesota, south of Rochester. So we've been involved in the apple business for a long time and have seen many varieties come along. So SweetTango is one that we started planting in 2008 and just have been very, very impressed with the apple and it's all its characteristics. So it's been just a great apple for us.
From the grower point of view, what are some of the other things that you really look for when you decide, hey, I'm going to dedicate acreage in my family business to growing this variety in particular?
You know, the interesting thing is that, when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, it was just you had your sweet apples like your Red Delicious, and then there's a variety native to Minnesota called Haralson, which was tart. And that was pretty much the status quo until we got into the 90s. And then the University of Minnesota started to release Honeycrisp. And then a little bit later, it was SweetTango. And the thing that differentiated us, or those apples, was the texture, the juiciness, that snap when you bite into an apple. And that's what really, I think, has made a lot of people very, very keen into checking out the new varieties like SweetTango, because it is a sweet, juicy, and it's got that tremendous texture that I think you just don't see in some of the apples that have been around for a while.
So Minnesota is the birthplace of Honeycrisp apples, and Minnesota is also the birthplace of the SweetTango apple. So talk to us a little bit about that, because really the story of any apple variety kind of begins with that breeding, and so when we're talking about SweetTango, the story begins at the University of Minnesota. Help people understand how and why.
Well, the University of Minnesota has been breeding apples for over 100 years. And typically you take an apple, you cross-pollinate it, you plant the seeds, you get a sprig, and then you graft that onto a rootstock and you grow the plant. So it usually takes a little bit of time before you know really what you have. So in the instance of SweetTango, it is a cross between another great Minnesota variety called Honeycrisp and Zestar. So they put these 2 together, and they had many different combinations, but the SweetTango was the one that was really the one that they went after and released. So it's got the characteristics of both apples, both Honeycrisp and Zestar, and it makes a very, very nice mix when you eat it, that you've got these 2 great apples that form this even better apple, I feel.
And from a grower, and I love that story. And I also read that if we're talking about the parent apples, so I heard Honeycrisp was the bride and Zestar was the groom. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you'd have to talk to Dave Bedford, the plant breeder, but I'll go with that. I think that's probably a good analysis as any.
All right. Sounds good. So we'll have to get him here on the hot seat before too long to clear that up, but I love it. All right. So obviously the taste is certainly it's a marquee trait for all food. I mean, it's so important that our food tastes good. It's how we make I think in most cases, it's how we really make our decisions around what we're going to buy at the grocery store. Is, does this taste good? And especially, and maybe even most importantly, from a grower and shipper's point of view, are you going to buy this again? So many of us are from the school of thought of, hey, I'll try anything once, but will I come back and be a repeat customer? Will I continue to put SweetTango apples in my grocery cart and on my list week after week? That's really the secret sauce, so to say, in food marketing and in farming. But tell us, from your point of view as a grower, what are the traits that are critical and top of mind when it comes to deciding which varieties you're going to put your resources behind?
That's a great question, and I wish there was a scientific answer to it. And the best way I can describe it is the story I told you way back when we interviewed, is that my friend had this apple down in Lake City, Minnesota. He said, John, stop by, take a bite of this apple and tell me what you think. And it was so unique and it was so good that, it was, the scientific aspect is kind of thrown out the window, because the taste was good, the juiciness was good, the texture was fabulous. And I'm kind of an apple snob, and so I know what I like, and I try and put myself in the perspective of someone else that would be eating that apple for the first time. And I thought, man, if someone eats this for the first time, they are just going to be so wowed or blown away that it tastes so good. And so it's got so many of the good characteristics that you want that it'll be fabulous. And so it did turn out. There are other apples that Minnesota have released. First Kiss is one that is the name of an apple that is raised inside the state of Minnesota. Rave is what it's called outside. Once again, it's got the great texture, great taste, great juiciness. But when I start comparing SweetTango, Rave, Honeycrisp, and some of the newer varieties that are out there, I just always come back to SweetTango as being the one that's got everything in great proportions that make you want to have another one. And that's, once again, to finish the story, is like, I couldn't wait to decide when am I going to get my next one of these, because that's how good it was.
Little to no hesitation to plant this variety and graft those trees and become a SweetTango grower is what I'm hearing. So I think we can all agree that the SweetTango tastes really like none other. It has this natural, almost like a honey taste to it, or a natural honey spice. And the crunch is really exemplary. It is actually, and I think it still holds the Guinness World Record, John, as the loudest crunch in the world is owned by the SweetTango apple. Am I right?
I wouldn't doubt that at all. It is just fabulous. It's got that distinctive crunch when you bite into it, and it's noisy. You're not going to eat it. It's not a private apple.
I'd love to talk a little bit about what it means to be part of this grower co-op from your point of view. We talk often, I think in the industry and even on this show, we've talked about how farmers are the ultimate risk takers, more so really than even professional poker players in Vegas. You guys are literally gambling every single day with your livelihood and the decisions you've made for, what you're going to do as a family business. So let's talk about the next big thing, cooperative, and talk a little bit more about the creation of that and how, what the cooperative concept does to empower a grower like yourself and a family farming operation like Pine Tree Apple Orchard.
When we first started to plant SweetTango, and I knew the cooperative was going to be based across the United States, so the northern tier of states, Washington, Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, and some in Nova Scotia. And it came at a time when, you're just, we're all very competitive, and it's to put Pine Tree Apple Orchard on a measuring stick against some of the other top growers across the United States. I really welcomed the challenge, because I thought, this is really how you're going to prove if you know what you're doing, or if you're just pretending you know what you're doing. And being a part of NBT has gotten me to be friends with growers all across the United States, and it's just a great uh, opportunity to talk to them and listen to what their trials and tribulations are, uh, and how they market their fruit, what it's like. My friends in New York, my friends in Michigan are certainly good resources to find out a better way to grow not only SweetTango but some of the other fruit, other varieties that we raise also. So it's been a joy to be involved with this group, and I'm proud to say that I am a member of the NBT co-op, and I always find it rewarding to be involved with these guys.
You are so right with your remarks of, it being an elite class for folks in the industry. The next big thing cooperative is, this includes some of the best apple growers in the world from multiple regions. It's not isolated to one state or one growing region. It's really a cross opco approach to growing this variety in particular. Does the next big thing cooperative? Are you solely focused on the success of the SweetTango?
The thing about the group is that we are test orchards for other fruit breeding programs around the world that are trying to get us to be involved with, raising their particular variety or their apples. And it's a kind of a feather in our cap that we are chosen to be part of that. The other side of that coin, though, is that when the co-op was formed, back in 06, 07, it was that, yes, we are going to research. We are going to look for apples that would fit, into our program. But the but on this was that the apple that we are testing has to be better than SweetTango. It cannot be as good because we've got as good in SweetTango. It has to be better than SweetTango. So in all the years that we've been testing apples and sampling apples across the United States, nothing's been better than SweetTango. And that is, I think, a credit to SweetTango in itself, that, there's nothing better. And when you get 45 guys in a room and we're sampling apples and everybody goes, well, that's good. Oh, that's good. And then but it's not any better. It's not even maybe even as close to SweetTango. So it's like, we've sampled hundreds of apples and it's like, well, nothing's as good as this one. So let's just keep going. We'll keep researching and keeping the door open, although there's nothing as good as the one we've got. So what do? You just keep on trying.
I love that. And it really humanizes the process. It makes it, as I listen to you tell that story, it feels almost grassroots in a way. It's just, we've got Apple experts from all over coming in, testing it and testing the flavor, and being able to say, hey, it's not better than. So I think that's really great. But how are you as a farmer, how are you, or a grower, able to maintain top quality and ensure that SweetTango has that, that it's the superior apple? How are you able to do that year after year with all of those variables that are thrown at you, through Mother Nature and the industry of agriculture as a whole?
Great question. And what we've been trying to do here at Pine Tree, and some of this technology I've picked up across the United States if I traveled, is that some of the main elements is that we're trying to reduce risk. So one way that we do reduce risk is we have trickle irrigation on all our high value apples. So SweetTango gets a drip of water practically every day throughout the summer because Minnesota was going through a drought, and so we had the trickle irrigation running. The other thing that we have that in our neck of the woods here around in Minnesota on the eastern side is that we get bad storms. So what I've done in the past is I put up hail netting to protect the trees, or the SweetTangos, from hail. And it does work. We've had hailstorms and have not had any damage to the trees. And the other thing is that as we grow the fruit, and we've only been growing it for, let's say, since '08, which is 20 years or so thereabouts. It is interesting that you only get one shot at growing it a year, and different problems come up, and that's where I think the co-op has been very good, is handling these problems, from one area of the United States maybe to the other area, that these people have seen that problem and they make aware that you watch out, you may see this coming down the road. So the sharing of information across the United States has been very beneficial. But trying to reduce the risk, and once the trees came out of their juvenile years, let's say from when they're planted until about 5 or 6 years old, the tree has settled down and made the apple maybe a little bit easier to grow, because early on there are certain problems with the tree as being very, very aggressive, and the apples were maybe a little bit on the softer side. And so we've weathered that storm, and now we've really figured out how we can grow these to the best quality for the consumer.
It's a wonderful explanation of SweetTango. Again, an apple variety that was introduced to consumers. So you started growing it in 2008, but by the time it actually got into, households and kitchens across America, was it 2009, John?
Oh, no, it's probably more about, it took us about 5 or 6 years to ramp up the pipeline to make sure that we could introduce the apple to the United States and have enough supply there. I mean, the supply is getting larger and larger, and more acreage is being planted. But those first few years, it was a very hot commodity, because if you could get SweetTangos, you were near the top of the list on someone's chart.
You plant these trees, or you graft the trees. By the time the tree is actually producing fruit that you can sell at retail or for commercial purposes, it's approximately a 3-year turnaround for growers, correct?
Yeah. In some areas of the United States, growers can, depending upon the density of the trees that they plant per acre, they can cut that time down. Here in the Midwest, it maybe takes a little bit longer for us to have the trees acclimated to their site, and the weather being a variable in that aspect of growing. So it maybe takes us a little bit longer to bring a tree into production than it may on the East or West Coast. So, but all in all, it took 4 or 5 years, and then everything was probably headed in the right direction.
You mentioned there's growers throughout the United States, growers in Canada. And so just to help folks understand that's also very important, to have diverse locations where we can source SweetTango apples. So that empowers the year-round supply, which I believe we're kind of still working towards. To have that year-round supply, we need a little bit more domestic volume to get there, but it also helps with our industry, and the retailers push to not only source local, but also from a climate perspective, with food miles and climate friendly sourcing and all of the ESG goals that retailers have. This diversity in sourcing options throughout the states and even into Canada, that really positions SweetTango as a variety for operational success within the fresh produce supply chain.
Absolutely. It is unique in that, because you do have 45 growers that are growing one variety, and it really gets down to it. It is an apple in a portfolio that everybody has. I know that, like here we have, probably 15 different varieties that we grow, and SweetTango fits in very nicely, at the season that we have it dictated to right now, which is right around after Labor Day and probably up until about Halloween or so. And going across the country, that's kind of the same thing. There is a SweetTango season, and it might vary a little bit from the West Coast to the East Coast to the Midwest about the different ripening times, but we seem to all hit stride right about now and through the end of October, probably into Thanksgiving, maybe even into Christmas a little bit, that as the supply lasts. And it is just a great apple, for everybody to us 45 guys to have in our portfolio to sell.
All right. Let's have a little fun question before we take our first break, John. What personality trait do you value most in a colleague, and which do you dislike the most?
In a colleague, because I work with my brothers and sisters, so I think a sense of humor is you've got to have a sense of humor, and I really endear myself to people that can give a joke, take a joke, and so I would say having a sense of humor. Now, the other side of that coin is
what do you dislike?
Well, that's a good one, really. Moodiness. I think is people that because once again we're on this. We being a direct marketer, we really can't have a bad day. You always have to be somewhat upbeat and cheerful. And people that are somewhat a little bit on the moody side really just kind of drive me crazy. And it's like, especially if you're working at Pine Tree, you always have to have your happy game face on.
I love that. All right. So coming up, we're going to learn more about John's love for apples, and we're going to talk about some produce news. So stay with us. Hey, everybody. You asked, we listened. So I know that you all love our dog food recipes on theproducemoms.com. Together with our brand partners at Sage Fruit, we have actually published a dog food cookbook. So visit theproducemoms.com/ebook and you can download your free copy of the dog food cookbook presented by the Produce Moms and Sage Fruit. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Produce Moms Podcast. Lori Taylor here with John Jacobson. And this next segment is all about learning more about SweetTango apples in the news. The SweetTango apple has proven its success over many seasons. It consistently ranks as the top club apple and a top 10 apple variety when it's in the market. Let's talk about that, John. I think that's a really powerful accolade here for the SweetTango apple. A top club apple and a top 10 apple variety. But here's the kicker. Notice that little clause at the end of the headline, when it's in the market. So let's talk about what that means and why market access is so important.
One of the things that the co-op is trying to address is, access, in different markets, some the big cities naturally get the bulk of where this apple is going to be found or where it's going to be distributed. As we ramp up production, I think that's probably one of our limiting factors is that, it's taken a while. Once again, we are gambling, like you said before, we are gambling a little bit here, and we are going to proceed cautiously. I think everybody was willing to bet on the initial planting, and now it's trying to increase the plantings and make the apple more available. So that is on the agenda, and I think that there are the growers that I know are planting more. So I think once again it's going to take us a couple of years where we fulfill the need to get this apple out a little bit more. The production is going to be ramping up. So I think people may have to be patient a little bit to find it, and hopefully that will alleviate some of the problem. Although on the other hand, having it people search for it makes it a little bit more seductive. Makes it a little bit more wanting. So although I'd rather see everybody be able to get at it, it's still there is still time for us to get to that problem and have it corrected.
I need a better analogy for this, John, but the best way that I describe that seductive nature of a limited time offering, You know what food item I use? I always tell people, think of like McDonald's success with the McRib. And I'm like embarrassed to say that on the podcast, but because it's so off brand for us, but really that is such a great example that I think everyone can relate to,
Yep.
is that seasonal offering at McDonald's. So let's talk about another headline here. I think you're going to love this one. And I definitely want to hear your response on it. In a year when consumers might be concerned about inflation, SweetTango will prove its worth to consumers and retailers alike.
Absolutely. Once again, the quick analogy I can use for that is that when we first started to sell SweetTango, being a direct marketer, we are standing right behind the shelves, right when someone wants to buy a half peck of SweetTango. And believe me, they're not inexpensive apples. They're not inexpensive to raise. It takes a lot of time and effort for us to bring an apple from the tree, down into the building and have it processed and put into a bag. So here's a young couple that are in front of the SweetTango shelf at our operation. And the gentleman goes, wow, they're a little expensive. They're, whatever, I can't remember what the price was. They're $16 for a half peck of apples, which is probably approximately 6.2 pounds. And he looks at the woman that he's with, maybe it was his wife, and she says, it's the best money we're going to spend. Let's buy them. And so that's it right there. I mean, you sample it, you eat it, and it's like, I love it. I don't care what it's going to cost. Let's buy them.
Well, and when we compare that, John, to a 6 point whatever pound of any other food item, you compare the nutritional benefits and the price per pound of the SweetTango. I mean, it again indexes really high in those values. So from a nutrition and overall affordability. All right, ready for another headline? This one's actually a quote from an article. Okay. We are really stepping up our targeted digital advertising and social media to leverage our passionate fan base. Our passionate fans are a huge part of our marketing strategy, says Jennifer Parkhill, and she serves as the co-op's executive director.
Couldn't agree more. And Jennifer, since she's been on board, has done a fabulous job of, putting us out there, putting the social media aspect, the people that really, are in the super fans, as I believe what she calls them, has just done a fabulous job of, making the apple more visible. And so I agree 100%. And we do it here too at Pine Tree in our social media. We hype SweetTango, and we want to make sure that everybody knows how great this apple is, because I think when it gets down to it, when you taste the apple and eat it, it's the word of mouth. Where can I find this? Whether it be going to a direct farm market like we have here at Pine Tree, you go to a grocery store, a farmer's market in town, and she's provided the links for people to find that out. And it is just absolutely fabulous. But I think the word of mouth is just the way to go. It's the best form that you can have.
I mean, Jen is just a joy to work with. So best days ahead is what I always say when we close out our meetings with Jen, because she just has that type of optimistic personality. Nothing's going to get her down. So I love her optimism, and gosh, what a great executive director. So let's talk about our last headline here that we're going to kind of, thank you. And let's talk about our last headline here, John, that we're going to have in this section. And it's a pandemic related response. All right. That's what this is about. So this kind of comes from one of your Pacific Northwest co-op members. All right. So talking about the Western region's milk growers with this headline. Responding to the pandemic-related rise in popularity of SweetTango's 2, 3, and 5-pound pouch bags, Milk Growers is testing in limited markets a 4-pack featuring larger pieces of fruit that they typically sell bulk.
that has really, I know that when the pandemic started, or when it was upon us, and I actually, it gave us a little bit of time because it really started in March of 2020, and the apple season really didn't start until August or September. So we did have a little bit of time to plan and strategize. I know that the wholesale aspect, a lot of people didn't want to buy fruit that was loose. They wanted to buy apples that were in bags or whatnot. We have always sold apples in bags at Pine Tree, so this wasn't anything really new for us. But I like their idea of trying to come up with the appropriate size serving, if you will, or the amount of apples that people want to buy in a particular bag, whether it be a 2-pound pouch, a 4-pack, like what they're experimenting with. Once again, we sell everything in a half-pack bag, or we will sell individual apples here. I think it's just the nature of what's going on in the world right now that you're going to have to try something else because you want to increase the volume of apples that you sell. What is the key? What is the pack or package or packaging that is going to make someone want to buy an apple, or specifically for us, a SweetTango apple, of course.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so awesome responses to our produce news segment. Thank you so much, John. Hey, folks, coming up, we're going to wrap things up and more. Stick with us. Happy holidays, everyone. I want to invite you to theproducemoms.com to check out our annual gift guide. We recently published our 2022 gift guide. Within this gift guide, there are 22 amazing gift ideas. These are ways to gift the gift of fruits and veggies, the gift of sustainability, wonderful inspiration for DIY gifts that won't break the bank. And speaking of budget, several of these companies have offered us exclusive discount codes. So make sure that you visit theproducemoms.com to check out our 2022 holiday gift guide. Welcome back. It's time to wrap things up. But before we close out today's show, I've got one more little segment that I want to get John's thoughts on. So, John, we call this our worst advice, best advice segment. So advice from others, especially when you're a business owner, especially when you are in a family-owned business operation, advice from others is so important, but it can also be so toxic. So advice from others. What is the worst piece of advice you've received? What is the best piece? If you're willing to say who gave you that advice, we'll, by all means, we'll take that. But I'd love to learn worst advice, best advice, and most importantly, what you learn or take away from each.
I think that the best advice is that one of the things that we do at Pine Tree is we're always, trying to be true to ourselves. And if, we defined who we are growers of great, high quality apples. And, we base it on that. And that's how we live our lives, or we strive towards that. We want to be the best possible growers that we can. And the worst advice is probably the opposite of that, is trying to be everything to everybody. And I think you have to define who you are and stay close to that mantra that you may have. Whereas, if you're going to try and be everything to everybody, I think you are going to fail, because you have to determine who you are and where you're going, and not try and be everything to everybody. So I think my father is probably, or mother and father were the ones that really tried to say, define who you are and go there. And then conversely, I think just over experience is, oh, we can't be that to everybody. So we're going to be this.
John, that's super powerful advice. I don't care who you are in the world. That advice, that mantra upon which we can live our lives is so important and empowering. So thank you for sharing. And I love that the advice came your way through your parents. That's so heartwarming. I love it. Thank you. All right. Well, folks, this has been an absolute great segment. John, I'm going to give you a chance for final words and thoughts. But before I pass the mic to you, everyone who's with us today, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Be sure to check out the Produce Moms on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. We try to be everywhere. So please check us out. Thank you for being here with us. And your ratings, reviews, subscribes, and shares of this show, it allows us and empowers us to come back week after week and meet with wonderful people like John to tell these inspiring stories all about getting more fruits and vegetables on every table and helping you understand the people who are really behind that mission that we have to make the world a better place and get more fruits and veggies on every table worldwide. So from me, special thank you to everyone involved in the Produce Moms podcast, my entire team, Helena, Jen, our producer, Kristen. And with that, John, I'm going to pass the mic back to you for our final thoughts, our closing thoughts, and our goodbye to all of our listeners.
Well, seeing as how we're talking about SweetTangos, I would be advised to look through social media, look at your grocery store. I know that SweetTango has the website that you can go to and find out where they are located in your neighborhood. Hopefully, they are just down the block and they're not too far away. And other than that, just have a good session or a good season going forward. And we look forward to seeing everybody with the SweetTango in their hand sometime soon.
Before we close out the show, folks, it's SweetTango.com is the website that you can visit. They also have a really great store locator on there, so you can find out who close to your home has SweetTango on shelf right now. They are available nationwide, and oh my goodness, I don't think we need to state it again, but I'm going to state it again. Great apple, right, John? Wonderful apples. The truth is in the taste, right, John?
Absolutely. It's the best tasting apple out there right now. And I think if your fans went out and bought one, they would concur with how we feel about it.
That's a wrap. That was a beautiful ending. Don't forget to subscribe to the Produce Moms podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and any preferred podcast platform. Check out the Produce Moms on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Special thanks to everyone involved with the Produce Moms podcast, my amazing team. Stay tuned till next time. The Produce Challenge is a tool that we've been publishing at the Produce Moms since 2013. This tool is an incredible, easy way for you to discover more varieties of fruits and vegetables in the produce department. It is a proven tool and strategy to get us all to eat more fruits and vegetables in both volume and variety. When we started the tool in 2013, the goal was to encourage everyone to go into the produce department and try them all. Find your favorite. Challenge to view this month's Produce Challenge. Remember, it's never too late to start. This tool helps you eat more fruits and vegetables, a different fruit or vegetable every day. It's also a great tool for seasonality, and you can count on us at the Produce Moms for all of the tips that you need on how to select, store, and serve each of the produce items of the day in the Produce Challenge through our social media channels. Hope to see you taking the Produce Challenge soon.